Hi guys and welcome to the War Story podcast. Quick one from me before we get into the episode. I will be down at Aces High Gallery on the 8th of February talking soldier stories, war stories from the Second World War, particularly the Germany campaign in 1945. It's an hour kind of talk on the British Army's campaign, the last campaign of the Second Army, which had landed in Normandy, fought its way across Europe. And we're telling the story through these stories of soldiers who were there. It's not going to be one of these, and then this unit moved here and this unit moved there. I mean, there'll be a little bit of that. But generally speaking, we're going to be talking about the experiences of particular soldiers, some of whom took part in the operation to take Pegasus Bridge in Normandy. Others were 18-year-old replacements, seeing combat for the first time. And through their experiences, we're going to get an idea of the larger picture. And hopefully that area of the war, which I feel is a bit of an overlooked part of it, a forgotten campaign, so to speak. Hopefully it'll be teaching you something you don't know and give you an interest in it from there. I think I've said it before on the podcast that I was very disappointed when I went out to Germany for the 80th anniversary of the campaign of the invasion of Germany, and didn't really see any kind of representation there from the army or anything. And I do think I've said this before. I do think in these circumstances, try to be part of the solution rather than just kind of whinging about it. So if you'd like to learn more about it, it'd be great to see you there. There's a link down in the show notes for tickets or anything. It's also on my social media. All right, into today's guest, my friend Ted Shirley, fellow Welshman and a fellow Royal Welshman. He served with the 1st Battalion, and he served as a sniper in Afghanistan. I know some of you have been asking for more sniper-related podcasts, so here you go. You're very welcome, and if you want to square Ted away, please check out the links down in the show notes to his books. I think he's also getting into doing some talks and stuff himself, so keep an eye out for that. Give him a follow on social media, all that good stuff. All right, guys, without further ado, here is Mr. Ted Shirley. Ted, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, good to see you, guys. Yeah, great. Thank you for having me.
Welcome, mate. So I'll tell the audience now that we will be conducting the rest of the podcast in Welsh. So if anyone else is speaking, they're in trouble. Now, mate, it's great to have you on at last, mate. You've been really busy. It's great to see you've been putting yourself around there. Several podcasts. Obviously, you've got the book coming out and stuff. You're doing it the right way, mate. It's really good to see. You've got to be your number one salesman, and it's a great story that you've got. We're not going to give everyone every little bit of juicy detail today. If they want to learn that, then there's a nice book where they can go and pick it up, with an audiobook coming in the future as today, which I will keep people posted on when they get the audiobook. So we have a lot of inventory, man, listening to this, mate. Can't be expecting them to pick up a book. But mate, let's go back to the beginning, mate. Where are you from, and when was it in your life that you found yourself starting to gravitate towards a career in the military?
Oh, so I'm from North Wales, around the North Wales coast near Rhyl. And it was always going to be my life, the military. From being very young, my old man was in the Navy during the Falklands conflict. So I'd hear all these stories, and I'd always grown up around people who had been around me who were in the military. So I always wanted to do it. It was something that was my dream from a very young age. So as soon as I finished school, that was me. I was off. Joined the Royal Marines at first. Hated it. I was 2 weeks after my 17th birthday, joined the Royal Marines. Absolutely hated it. So I came out and then later joined the army. And it was the best thing I could ever have done back then, to be honest.
What was it you didn't like about the Marines?
I was too young, I think. Too many showers. No, yeah, it was different. It was different to what I expected, and yeah, I wasn't ready for it. I was a cocky young teenager, and yeah, there was far too much for me to take on board back then.
So what kind of age were you when you went into the army?
Army 18. First joined 18. Got 2 weeks until passing out up in Catterick, and I broke my foot. We went to Europe on a battlefield tour, and on the way there, I got pissed up and decided to leapfrog over one of the lads, and I was that drunk I didn't realise he was at the top of the stairs. So I plummeted down the ferry steps and broke my foot. So that was a bit of a nightmare. So it took me ages to get out of cat trick, and then finally, in 2008, I met up with the battalion in Cyprus.
So what year would you have joined then? 2006?
2007.
Okay. So by this point then, Afghans fully kicked off. Iraq's been going on. So when you joined then, you were under no illusions about what operations you might go on. Was there a part of you that was it even a bit worried that you might miss them?
There was a little bit. I felt like there was this sort of like ticking clock going where my sort of youth was going, and I was just like, there's not much going on in North Wales, and I certainly didn't want to be around here for all my youth. So yeah, I did kind of worry a little bit that it wasn't going to happen, but I was determined. There was nothing was going to stop me. That time I broke my foot, I ended up doing the CFT with that broken foot, and I just didn't say anything because I was like, I've only got 2 weeks left, I'll be able to push through this. But yeah, silly. So yeah, nothing was going to stop me. I had my mind very much set on a career in the army.
And what was the reception like when you got to battalion? How was your first kind of few weeks fitting in?
Do you know what? For me, it was all right. The sort of, obviously, you know, you get the initiations and all that sort of stuff, but it was very. I think I was in battalion for about 6 weeks before I went on my first tour. So it was everyone was busy, everyone was doing stuff. It was quickly getting issued kit that I'd never seen before, and I think I maybe went on one exercise with all the lads, and then we were off. I was in Afghan before I knew it, so I was very much learning on the cuff.
And when you joined the battalion, then was this where they were at Dale at this point, or are they in?
No, in Cyprus. Yeah,
Cyprus, right?
For a while, yeah. Which was great fun. What an military life.
And what kind of role were you put into? What company and what role within a platoon?
I went straight into the Blades, so I was a rifleman, and I fit straight in, to be honest. It was good. All the lads were great. There was loads of North Wales lads, and it was just one big happy family. It was a great start, to be honest. I couldn't have wished for it to go any better.
And what company was that, sorry?
In B Company.
B Company.
Bravo Blades.
So when you got there, then presumably they're kind of in the latter stages of doing pre-deployment training, all that kind of side of things.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about, kind of getting out on a tour at that point?
I think I was more worried about fitting in with the lads. That's all I wanted to do was sort of turn up and just be a part of everything straight away. And I was. So by the time that had happened, I was in Afghan, and I was on the job, and it was a bit sort of being a crow, and everyone had just the year before been on a hell of a tour, and there was that sort of new guy eyes on you kind of thing. What kind of bloke are you going to be? But yeah, I didn't mess about on that first one. I was excited to be there. It took me so long to get to that point I was buzzing to get going.
So this first tour then, would this be part of like Theatre Reserve Battle Group?
Yes, it
right.
Was. Yeah.
So can you talk us through what the kind of really, from what you know as well about the kind of the years that are units at Cyprus, how that works with units coming in and out of theatre and working as the theatre reserve for both Afghan and Iraq, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we were sort of quick reaction force being based, halfway between Britain and the Middle East. So anytime anything happened where we needed an influx of troops over there or anything like that, it would be our lot in Cyprus that would sort of get the call, and lads were frequently, there'd be buses turning up outside the company blocks and being like, right, lads, you're off to Iraq or whatnot. But I'd been in battalion 2 weeks, and a coach turned up outside our block and said, "B Company, you're off to Iraq. Get your stuff." And we were all like, Kit was at the end of your bed most of the time when we were there, or well, at least while I was there. So I'm on the phone to my mum going, I'm going to Iraq. And she was like, what? I didn't know that. I was like, I didn't bloody know that either. I was like, I'll let you know what happens. And it turned out it was D company, not B company. Yeah. So I was like, whew. But yeah, a few weeks later, and I was off there.
So talk us through that first time in Afghan then, mate. What were you doing? Where were you doing it from?
So we were based in a place called Fob, Edinburgh, just outside of Muscala, which it's quite a well-known place, isn't it? There was obviously a lot of stuff that went down there. There was a lot of boring stuff, which surprised me, to be honest. I just had this vision in my head of what it was going to be like, and it very much wasn't that. It was 90% boredom, as most of the blokes would tell you. But it was cool. It was a great sort of introduction to tour. It was kinetic. I sort of, the first time getting shot at happened on that tour, which was, I don't know, quite a very strange moment, to be honest.
All right, talk us through that moment, mate. Talk us through that first time getting shot at.
I was talking to one of the other sniper lads about it the other day, because he was there. It was the first time he'd been shot at as well. And we just looked at each other, and we'd passed out a couple of weeks apart. And so it was the first time for us both, and we just started laughing.
And what, are you on patrol, or like, where are you when this is going on? Paint me and see me.
Cool. Yeah, right. So it was about, I think it was a 20 or 30 kilometre tab that we'd done along this wadi. We were one side, and the Special Forces, I think it was 2-3, were the other side of this wadi. And we're patrolling in, and then we got contacted, and we're sort of in the middle of all these compounds, and the walls are about 15 foot, and it was very limited visibility. It was sort of, someone would be popping down an alleyway, firing rounds at us, and we'd be running out of the way and sort of trying to figure out what the hell we're going to do. It was a bit of a sort of labyrinthy situation. So during all this madness, me and one of the lads are just looking at each other in disbelief. We can't believe it. We're like made up this is it. It's happening. We're finally in a contact. We're not firing any rounds back at this point or anything, but the adrenaline hit, I'll never forget that. It was something that will stay with me forever. It was amazing. And then it turned quite frightening, to be honest, after a little while. We sort of didn't realise where the rounds were coming from. We were being told to run in this direction, and we can hear machine gun fire. And we're like, shit, so we're running right towards the bloody Taliban here. And it turned out it wasn't. It was a couple of lads with a jimpy on a hillside, and we were running underneath them as they were suppressing the enemy, and we made our way up this giant hill. There was a horrendous to get up while being shot at. There was an RPG that landed right next to me and a couple of the lads, and luckily it didn't go off. It was a bit of a hectic day. So yeah, that was my introduction to Afghan. That was quite early on in that tour, to be honest.
And is that the kind of thing that you'd be doing out there, going out and doing like kind of these big movement to contacts, pushing down the wadi, trying to expand, like, or are you just kind of going in, smashing stuff and leaving?
A little bit. There was different roles. There was a place called Roshan Tower, which was this giant telemast that needed looking after. So sometimes you'd be stuck there. There was a few different positions. Sometimes you'd be out on foot patrol. Sometimes we'd be out sort of doing like desert patrols in the vehicles. There was all sorts. So it was a massive learning curve for me, just seeing how everything operated. But it was the ideal way for me to do it, to be honest, because it wasn't too hectic. It was just hectic enough for me to figure out what goes on and sort of earn the stripes a little bit.
And how long were you out there on that one?
I think it was 4 months, that one. Right. Yeah, 4 months, and then back to Cyprus with clean down procedure then to get back to Chester.
Did you want to come back at the end of 4 months, or were you quite happy out there?
No, I was happy out there, to be honest. I was enjoying it. I could have stayed there for quite a while, I think, the way that it was, at least. Obviously, I learned on the second tour that, I couldn't wait to get home from that one, in a way. But yeah, and I was happy. I was enjoying the job, and I was a happy young man.
So the name of your book's Afghan Sniper. When does the sniper kind of part of everything begin?
So that was after after this first tour. We left Cyprus and ended up back in the Dale in Chester, getting based there. And on this first tour, I'd sort of proved myself, even though I was brand new, really. I'd showed that I was all right, I was going to get stuck in. So eventually, the opportunity came where people were getting selected for the pre-selection phase of the sniper cadre. So I, threw my name in the hat, and I was selected. So you go through a sort of aptitude test, physical testing sort of period, and then those that rise to the top of that are then sent away to the sniper cadre, which is a 6-month long course. And I could not wait to get started. I was very excited about that. I'd always wanted to be a sniper. I'd always wanted to be a sort of like one of only a few. Do you know what I mean? I had ideas for the career that I wanted, and it wasn't just going to be Green Army. Hopefully, that's what I'd hoped. So yeah, getting to sort of go on that was a big confidence boost, I think, really.
Just to digress a little for a moment, mate.
Yeah.
You're obviously very keen when you get back off this tour. What's the kind of feeling in the battalion at that time, given that a lot of the lads have been in, out of these tours? Would you say that it was did that, in your opinion, make the battalion obviously there's always exceptions, but as a whole, did you feel like it was quite a kind of up for it kind of battalion, or had lads kind of had a bit of enough by this point, or how do you
I feel like everyone was war hardened. At that time, I think there was a very specific few years where the Royal Welsh were hard as fuck. Like you just said, it was constant deployments on operations, and there was so much experience there that even sort of as a new guy, for me, it was very apparent that everyone knew exactly what the fuck they were doing. So yeah, I feel like we were in a really good position. But as far as like the morale, I think some of the older guys had had a bit of enough. There'd been some difficult years. So I think the younger lot of us were sort of keen to sort of take the baton a little bit there. And so, yeah, I think it was the younger guys that were keen. But the older lot were quite happy to sit back then, I think, some of them. Yeah.
And we'll get back to the sniper stuff in a minute, but just to hit on that point then, given the amount of experience that the battalion has accumulated by this point, specifically in Afghan, do you think that might have played into why they were chosen to have the role that they did in Op Moshtarak?
Yeah, I do. I really do. At the time, obviously everyone loves their own regiment, but I think we were all really confident in the fact that, if anyone was going to be doing anything in Afghan and doing it well, it was going to be us. We I know that sounds cocky, but everyone had been there multiple times, and everyone had been a part of the horriblest bits of it, and sort of come out the other side. So yeah, I think that the experience of the battalion as a whole definitely would have made a big difference in who was going to be at the spearhead of our operation.
Well, we'll definitely get on to Moshtarak, but let's get back to the sniper training, mate. Was it what you expected?
It was, and more. There was a lot more maths involved than I was happy with. I am not good at maths, so a calculator was like constantly near me. But yeah, it was amazing. It honestly felt I'd grown up watching films like Sniper, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All these sort of films that just inspired me, and to be learning how to then do these things, learning about what wind does and how everything affects what a round does as it's flying through the air. It felt like Shooter. It felt like I was sort of learning the kind of stuff that I'd watched Mark Wahlberg doing on the telly or whatever, you know. It was hard. It was hard on the brain at first. There was a lot of classroom stuff, a lot of learning fire positions. That sounds quite basic, but there's so many more as a sniper. And then holding them until it hurt, and just getting to know the weapon system, how to move with it, just making it an extension of yourself, really, for 3 months. And you're whopping these targets all day, every day. It's very insightful. And after just the first phase, the bit up Scotland where you're doing 3 months of shooting and ballistics lessons and stuff, you start to feel different as a soldier. I think it sort of elevates your mindset a little bit, that first phase.
Can you expand on that a bit? On how it elevates you as a soldier? Is that down to personal drills, the way that you have to think bigger picture? Like when was that?
Yeah, I think the bigger picture side of it. I think you're not so much thinking, section attacks and platoon attacks sort of thing anymore. You're thinking as an outside perspective, watching over that sort of stuff. So your mind's shifting. You sort of your like tactical mind changes from a rifleman mindset to a sniper's almost. But in that first phase, you begin to shift that way at least. And then in phase 2, which is the tactical phase in Brecon, that's another 3 months of the proper stuff. The stuff you hear about, you know what I mean? The stuff, the camouflage and concealment and the stalks and all the map reading side of things. That is where you would do actually change then as a soldier.
Was there any points during that training where you thought you might have picked the wrong thing, or was it always?
No, I was always very happy. Yeah, that was me. That is what I wanted to be doing. The maths was a genuine concern, to be honest, because I'm really not good at it. But I sort of, I got there in the end. And once I'd sort of like figured everything out and written all my charts down and had all my clicks written down and stuff, I was good to go. And then it was a case of, right, I managed to overcome that maths hurdle, and now I can concentrate on actually doing what's required of me. And I kind of picked that up a little bit later on. So I did get a little bit better at maths, yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say about sniper training before we get back to ops?
Oh, sniper training. It was great fun. It was, especially once we'd got to Brecon, you sort of, the tactical side of it where you're learning how to do all these things, which culminate in, tracking down enemy, taking shots, withdrawing and getting the hell out of there, all without being seen. That was the stuff that I wanted to be doing, the underground observation posts and sitting in them for days. That was the cool stuff. And so I really enjoyed it. It was really hard. It was really, really, really hard. And there was just a very small percentage of people that were there at the end that started it. But it felt kind of like, right, that's done. Now what's next? And the next thing was Kenya for us. So we went off to Kenya for 2 months pre-deployment. But yeah, fun. Anyone that's in, I'd suggest it as a career.
What was Kenya like?
Kenya was amazing. That was, I'd never been anywhere like that before in my life. It was, for me, the wildlife, it just blew my mind. Just, seeing giraffes and zebras cutting about. And, we saw one morning, we were doing a dawn attack. We saw a lion running and jump on this zebra's back and take it down. And it was like we were at David Attenborough live tickets or something. It was insane. It was mad. And then seeing tribes people with spears and shields and mobile phones in the middle of nowhere. And what is going on here? Mad place. And the first time that I'd been on an exercise that was such a big scale. We had Lynx helicopters and artillery firing and all sorts. And it was, for me, I was like, wow, this wasn't even going on my first tour of Afghan.
So at what point did you know you were going back to Afghan, and at what point did you know about Op Moshtarak?
A couple of days before it happened.
Really?
Wow. Yeah, I had no idea.
So you knew before Kenya that you were going to be going out to Helmand again.
Yes.
How did you feel going on? How did you feel going on the second deployment? Is that any different feelings to the first time you went out?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, it was more. I didn't feel like I had anything to prove this time. That was for sure. I was confident, but I was also feeling the pressure. I think being a sniper, the battalion hadn't really used snipers for quite a while, so it was almost a new concept again. Right. So we were learning the job, and our commanders were also sort of learning how to use us. We used Kenya as a way to sort of show them, I think, look, this is what we're now capable of. We're not the riflemen you knew, 6-8 months ago. And once we're over in Kenya for 2 months, so we had a lot of time and a lot of exercises, a lot of different scenarios to run through how we'd be used and what we could bring to the teams. So it instilled a lot of confidence. So going for my second tour in Afghan was not so much nerve-wracking, but I knew what to expect this time. There was, I think that's a double-edged sword. I was putting my mind in a very dark place before going there. My mindset was very angry, aggressive, because I thought that's what's going to keep me alive. I'm about to go and fight for my life. And you know yourself before deploying, you could picture the worst case scenarios, and I was kind of trying to prepare my mind. So my mind was shut down. My emotions became shut down. I didn't want to be missing people at home. It was very much a sort of closed down procedure, and there's actually science to sort of back what I'm talking about here. I explain it in my talks. I do sort of like guest speaker talks now. So I'll save that for those talks. But yeah, there is a science behind what actually happens to your brain before you go to a theatre.
And are you operating as a sniper platoon, or are you part of recce, or have they put you amongst the platoons? How's it work?
We were in fire support as a sniper platoon. But there wasn't enough of us. There was 5 of us. So we were just sort of, who needs a sniper? Right, one there. All the rifle companies got a sniper. But it meant that we were working on our own from the offset. We weren't working as a sniper pair. There was no spotter shooter situations. We were doing both roles, which came with its complications, I think, and sort of weight of everything on just one person's shoulder. For me in particular, became quite heavy. But yeah, we were sort of just attached to rifle companies, and at first I was a part of the mobile reconnaissance force. So our job was to stay out in the desert, go and strike positions, also sound positions, and then become invisible and disappear back into the desert again. That was sort of the early few weeks of our tour. And then it changed. Then as in the MRF, we sort of did some joint work with the Estonians. As snipers went and did a lot of stuff with their Estonian snipers, which was cool. I was quite an insight. I didn't know that they set up saunas everywhere they go. That was a good one. Apparently the must-have is the old sauna for Estonian troops.
So had you noticed any changes in Afghanistan between your first tour and getting out on your second? This could be in terms of anything, in terms of like enemy kind of TTPs or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was not so much kicking doors and throwing grenades anymore. Our role had massively changed. I think we were almost a police detective role. We were, scanning retinas and checking people for gunpowder residue, and taking fingerprints and arresting people and knocking on doors and asking, can we come in and talk to people, instead of, kicking the door in and going in. It was very, very different. I think, there was a lot of aspects had changed. I think the way that the Taliban were fighting had changed. They seemed to, they seemed to be more aggressive and more sort of brazen and daring, I think, in what they were doing. Not as many sort of shoot and scoot situations. There was proper firefights where, you know, they were staying there and they were shooting back. They weren't just letting a couple of rounds off and legging it. We were having firefights, you know, well, one day was 13 hours.
What was the first time that you took a shot as a sniper?
This was, we'd been out on a patrol with the Afghan Special Forces, a small Special Forces unit with them. Mm-hmm. And they were a bunch of madmen. They were great. We couldn't speak the same language, but we got on just fine. We were good. And we'd gone out on this patrol, and there was a road that had irrigation ditches all the way down it. And this road was probably, I don't know, maybe 500 meters long. It was a big one. It was above these two fields that were down either side, but had just freshly been ploughed. And this is in the winter time now, so mud was going up to our knees as we're going through these. Obviously, we're not walking on the road. And then we got contacted. No, I tell a lie, actually. First, our interpreter heard. He channeled into the Taliban's radio frequencies and heard them over talking, saying, "Wait for us to get into the middle of this muddy field when we're nice and stuck, and then we'll open up on them." So we knew this. So we're kind of going, "Oh, for fuck's sake." Yeah. We had no idea. All of us snipers were looking around. There was like 3 or 4 of us snipers on this one patrol. And we're going, where the fuck are they? So we moved forward a little bit. And as we moved forward, the Afghan Special Forces are on the other side of the road. They've climbed up on the road and just legged it down this road. And then all hell broke loose. We're sort of, none of us are firing anything. We're kind of just seeing what kind of happens. And then their Special Forces guys get to the end of this road. There's a few massive bangs. And then it all goes quiet. And the madmen had taken this position. They just ran at it. So we're sort of thinking, right, okay, happy days. And as we've started to move, it started again. So this small contact, it was coming from what looked like a school sort of building. I don't know if it was a school, but it just reminded me of that. And there was big walls, and someone was poking round and firing, and then there was shots coming through holes in walls and stuff like that. So we were almost kind of pinned down a little bit. The position we were in was very sort of open. So it ended up, we had a rough idea where this guy was that was opening up at us. There was a wall, he kept poking around, and he was just hiding around this side of the wall. So us snipers, 3 of us snipers, we fired into that wall, and then it all stopped. So that was the first time I'd ever sort of, you know, pulled the trigger and ended a life, but I'm not sure whose round it was. I don't know. We're all quite happy to just take that as a little point each. So, but yeah, after that, it all went quiet, and we sort of got out there, and it was good for my confidence, I think, having pulled the trigger and kind of gone, right, okay, yeah, I know how that feels now. I know that I can do what I need to do, you know, with like scopes and settings and things like that under pressure. I know I can do it now. So I'd sort of settled in then, and that was it. I was in.
So, mate, there's loads of stories in the books that we could go into, but I pulled out 3 in particular, which I'd like to go into. Can you tell us about the day, especially I like this one because it's a bit, you know, we just had the Maduro raid go down in Venezuela. Delta Force are kind of the talk of the town, as they should be, because that raid, whether you agree with that, if it was legal or not, I don't care. That raid was Ali, and that's the end of it. You know, other people, lawyers can argue about if it was legal. I'm just saying it was Ali. But you've got a story involving Delta Force in Afghan. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, it's not a good story for them, but so it
well, they made up, mate. They made up for it now, so it's fine.
yeah. But to be fair, you know, we are talking about the Royal Welsh here, so what had happened? Delta Force had gone into this town. We don't know what they'd been told, but it turned out that there were more Taliban there, way more Taliban there than what was expected. On their way in, they took a bit of a pasting. They took multiple heavy casualties. That included the chopper pilot. The chopper pilot got shot in the head. So they managed to get out of there. And then we got this last minute brief that it was our turn. We're going to go. And we were to kick the hornet's nest, basically, and find out what was there, find out how many Taliban there were, how strong they were, and kind of what was going on. So the operation started. It was about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. We got onto a couple of Chinooks, and we set off in the darkness, set off in the direction. As soon as we got towards the target area, the Taliban were waiting for us, and they had Dushka anti-aircraft machine guns. Bum, 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 RPGs were flying at us. And I remember looking out of the window, the little sort of round windows on the side of the Chinook, just seeing tracer rounds and shit flying past the window and hearing them ping. And it was a moment. It was like, all I had in my head was the beginning of Saving Private Ryan. Like, in the boats going, oh my God. It was a hectic, heart-racing moment, that's for sure. And really uncomfortable because, it was ground troops. I didn't even like being in vehicles. I didn't like it. I wanted to be on my feet. I wanted to be, responsible for keeping myself alive. I didn't like other people having to do that. But we've eventually landed in this hot LZ, dealt with the initial contact, and then we made our way to these 3 sort of pre-designated compounds. I've moved with my multiple into ours, and I jumped straight on the roof. The lads all started filling sandbags and building defensive positions and knocking holes through walls and stuff like this, because we knew from that entry, we knew that this was going to be a bit of a tasted day. So as I'm on the roof, the sun's up now and it's starting to warm up, and I've noticed that this motorbike is moving, and it's got 1 guy on it, and then it's got 2 guys on it, and then it's got 1 guy on it, and I'm like, right, okay. And then further in the distance, there's a minibus driver, van full of blokes, just the driver, and I'm right, they're getting dropped off in fire positions here. So I've sort of talked down to the boss. I'm on this rooftop. The boss is down below me on the ground on the radio. I've let him know what's going on. And I said, right, I'm going to fire a warning shot. Because in my mind, I didn't want them thinking they've got the upper hand. I didn't want them getting everyone they wanted into these positions and that it starts on their terms. I wanted to let them know that they'd been seen. So I sort of got myself ready, flipped off the safety catch and fired a warning shot in front of this motorbike's front tyre, and it missed by a couple of inches, and he's gone wobbling off down the road. He didn't fall off it, to be fair, the bastard. He kept on going. But as I've done that, this crescendo has just kicked off from 360 all around us. Turned out there was a couple of 100 Taliban, apparently, that were in the area, and they opened up all 3 multiples in all different locations. We were all getting it. The walls were getting chipped away at rounds outside, of the compound where we were. RPGs were flying in. The lads on the ground around me are fighting like mad. They're at it like lions, keeping the Taliban away from these little rat runs and this sort of labyrinth alleyways that's now behind me. I've got my back to it all. I'm sort of trying to figure out who's shooting from where at the front, because I can tell rounds that are coming for me. They're sort of zipping just inches past my head. When they're close, don't you? You know that sound when it's just sort of quite close, or that's a bit too close. And these were a bit too close. So I'm looking, and then over to the west, I've looked, and I've seen this guy with an AK-47, and he's let off a few rounds. It looked like he was directly at me, and it set me off. This anger came over me like something you wouldn't believe, nothing I'd ever experienced before. I've sent a round back, but I'd missed because the settings that I put on my scope, the wind had changed, and it was only that I'd noticed a little carrier bag on a stick at the corner of this field. The farmers used to mark their land with bin bags or whatever flapping around. I'd noticed it had changed direction, so I've quickly readjusted my scope, and then just thoughts of our mate from the sniper cadre from the 2nd Battalion that had been killed, that they just flooded my mind, and this anger and hatred, and I just started holding this guy personally responsible for his death. And I fired, and I shot him in the throat. And this lad was probably the same age as me at the time. I was 20 at the time when I did this. I was 20 and 21. 21, I think it was, actually, sorry. And as he did it, I remember just watching him, the last moments of his life. There was no more rounds coming at me at this time, and then all of a sudden there was. And I looked, and he was holding his arm out, and he dropped his weapon by now, and he's got his hand on his throat, and he's calling out to a building to the side. And it turned out there was more Taliban in there, and that's where these rounds were coming from, towards my head. And they run out towards him. And yeah, the rest is in the book, let's say. But that was a very, very busy day for me. And there was a pivotal moment in my life, to be honest. That day changed my life completely.
Well, we can hit a bit about the the after effects of war later, mate. Definitely want to touch on that.
Yeah.
But let's just to talk a bit more about that contact. Then how did you break contact in the end? Was it a case of did you have to get air power in, or?
And Apache did turn up. Yeah, at the end, this firefight was going on and off for like 13 hours.
Oh right. Wow.
So yeah, it was a big one. And then at the end of the day, it was weird. It was like a long day at work. We got dropped off at first light, and then sort of just before last light, the Chinooks came back and picked us up, and it was weird. It was such a weird day. We'd gone, had this hell of a firefight, and it was like, back home for tea. We're in Bastion having tea. It was mad. It was a weird one. And after that, sort of as snipers, we had a hell of a day that day, and we made a name for ourselves as well. Which was, it was a big moment. It was kind of like, right, this is what we are really capable of now. And confidence levels grew in our confidence levels, and the blokes on the ground who we were then overwatching and protecting on ops and stuff like that. Their confidence grew. So yeah, it's quite a big pivotal day, to be honest.
And did that take place before Malshtarak?
Yeah, that was before that. That was, I think, Malshtarak was the next job, I think, after that one.
So when was the point? Was it after that one then that you had the press do a thing?
Yeah, I did.
Well, I found that amusing story, mate.
Oh, it's mad. It's bloody madness. So I've come off that job, not spoke to anyone. My mind is going places now at this point. I realise this in hindsight, that something that day, something went wrong in my brain. I've got on the chopper. Obviously, you can't speak to anyone on the chopper. I've got off the chopper in Bastion, where I'm then met by a Land Rover with a media liaison officer, and I'm then took to do an interview with the British tabloids. And I'm sort of sat there like, what the fuck? What is going on here? I'm just thinking, like, I just want to go and get some sleep. But instead, I'm put in this position where I'm having to talk about stuff that I've not even processed yet. I'm nowhere near to processing. It took me 10 years to process. But, you know, I don't think it was a position that I should have been in. God knows how it happened. I later know why it happened. It was... Yeah, I better not say why it happened. But yeah, I know why it happened. It was a tool.
Right. Well, do you think there's an element of with Malshtarak coming up of almost like kind of trying to think of word, like greasing the wheels in the British media to kind of ready people for big casualties and stuff like that?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was that. It was the idea that we knew British tabloids were being seen by the Taliban. There was a message in this piece, in this article. There was a message that I would be deploying on this Operation Malshtarak. And it was made out that it was kind of like, put your weapons down or this guy's going to come and get you. It was weird. That was the tone of the article.
So you think you were kind of unwittingly enrolled in some kind of psychological warfare?
Yeah, absolutely. And I did not realise it at all until quite a while afterwards. I felt it inside. I felt something. I felt this pressure I felt like, I don't know, like I was David Beckham, like playing for United, in his prime years. That's how I felt. Like there's this pressure on me now to do something. So much pressure.
Did that article, lead to any actions from the enemy side of things?
Over there?
Is that like, because I know there was at some point where you had a hired gun on the other side of the enemy, So was that any kind of direct result of this, or?
That in particular wasn't. No. That at the time, I think there was just a very big problem with enemy snipers, and there was a platoon of British troops that had been pinned down by this sniper, and they'd taken heavy casualties. They'd lost lads, and we were in the area. This was actually the only time those snipers were brought together on that tour to do a job. This sort of counter sniper offensive began. We did little bits with SF. They obviously went and smashed it, and we were sort of like created this little gang to go and deal with this fella who'd been causing mayhem. Who was, I'm not sure where he was from, but we do know that he was a hired professional. So we've gone one morning to this compound. We've patrolled there, and it's dead. It was just dead ground everywhere. It was like something out of a war movie. There was just bullet holes and bombed out buildings, but no movement. There was absolutely nothing. And we've got to this compound, and where these stranded troops had been, and their faces, I'd never seen anything like it. Not like at this time of the Afghan conflict, compounds were being overrun and things like that. It wasn't uncommon to lose positions, and we'd all heard these stories about some real bad things that happened there. And going in there, we could see this in these lads' faces. They'd clearly been fighting for their lives, but also mourning their mates. It was a very, it was quite heartbreaking, but very motivational for sure. So our commanders went to speak with theirs, and then us snipers took ourselves to one side to come up with our plan. There was 2 tower positions, sentry positions in this compound. So me and one of the lads climbed up one, and then 2 of the other snipers climbed up the other. And we'd sort of been told the kind of direction that this enemy sniper was, but no one had seen him. We hadn't seen him on the way in, so we were just going to pop our heads up and have a little look. The sniper next to me, he popped his head up for a millisecond, and bang, this massive shot rang out, and he sort of jumped down. We've all kind of gone, shit, what the fuck was that? Like we weren't really ready for it, to be honest. So quickly, I've sort of gone, he might be reloading, whoever it was, or whatever. So I've gone to nip my head up just above the HESCO. We've not got our weapons up on the HESCO or anything at this point. It's literally just getting our eyeballs above it to have a look at the lay of the land. And he sent one straight towards my head, and it was inches away from hitting me, and it shook me up big time. Like my heart was in my mouth. I thought, oh, Christ, that's very close. It was like the closest I've ever been to getting the good news, I think. So we've looked across to the other tower, and one of the sniper lads has then gone, and lifted his head up to have a quick look. And it was like we're just one at a time. So, no, sorry. No, I tell a lie. Before he poked his head up, one of the troops that had been stranded there got a helmet and stuck it on a stick, lifted it up above the wall in the middle in between these 2 sentry positions, and he got it. The helmet went bang, flew off the stick. Went, oh shit! So just as that happened, the other snipers popped his head up, and it's instantly a round came through it. It was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. There was nothing we could do. We couldn't get anywhere near looking at him. Never mind getting a shot off at him. That last round ended up going through a massive HESCO cage full of gravel, through a full tin of 7.62 ammunition, and through a railway sleeper and off into the distance. It was we didn't know at the time what this weapon was, and we still don't really. It's rumoured that it was some sort of like Lee Enfield kind of weapon. It was old and it was big and powerful. That's all we know. So the decision was made that we can't fucking look over there anymore. So we're gonna have to get down and come up with a plan B. So we did to the north of the compound where these troops were. We were going to leave them there and we were going to move to the next compound. It's like a 100-meter sprint, and we weren't going to use smoke grenades because a sniper's just going to. It's going to make things worse. You know, the best thing to do was just one at a time, leg it. So that's what we did. We lined up against this wall behind this little doorway. And cigarettes were getting passed down the line. Like the lads that didn't smoke, they were having a toke. They were smoking that day, and one at a time we just went, bang, go for it, zigzagging away and just trying to go over to this next compound. Luckily, we all did. We all made it. No one got injured. And by the time I'd made it there, the boss was on the net, and an Apache was en route. So we all sort of took cover, and boom, there was no more enemy sniper. Well, hopefully, we were a bit. To be honest, we were a bit pissed off that it wasn't us, as in the snipers that dealt with it. We kind of like, I don't know, it felt like cheating a little bit, but he was very, very good. Whoever he was, it wasn't to be messed about with.
So staying on the subject of sniping, mate, what was the longest shot that you took on the tour?
A mile away. It was, it turned out to be a Taliban commander that what had happened was one of our multiples had come under contact a couple of K away, and it came over the radio that they might be sort of withdrawing in our direction. So I was asked to jump on the roof, see if I see anything. It was, it was a shot in the dark. I wasn't expecting to see anything. I wasn't expecting to see anything. The sun had started to go down. It was sort of, it was the end of the day. But I did see something. I was looking out to this group of buildings, and it was just poppy fields, just pure pink poppies all the way for a mile until these buildings started at the end of this sort of village. And I saw these three guys with their AK-47s. They were walking in single file, and I thought at the time the IED threat in the area was off the charts. It was insane. We ended up finding one out like a few meters away from our front gate of our compound one day, which was shocking. It was frightening. Don't know how it got there, but anyway. So I thought they were walking in single file due to that. Just there must be a proven route there. But the guy in the centre, he was telling the guy at the front and the back what to do. He was very much in control. I could tell it, And there'd been chatter over the net that sort of led to finding out later on that he was in fact the commander and they were his protection. So as I've spotted them, I've put in the clicks on my weapon, and I sort of can't believe what's happening at this point. I've took my helmet off, I took my body armour off, and put my cap on, and I've got my sniper platoon t-shirt on, and I'm comfortable on this roof, and I'm thinking this is going to be the furthest shot I've ever attempted. So I've got to, I had to really concentrate here. And it turned out that there were 11 calculations I had to do in the end to get this round to where I needed it to be. It was mad. It was madness. And with my maths as well, I didn't have a calculator at the time. It was crazy. It was so I'm there going 12, 13. So I'm looking, and the sun is like casting this orange glow over everything. It's just a little bit too dark, but I'm sort of trying to make the most of a bad situation. I've got my weapon ready, and my scope is maximized to the distance now. So normally your point of aim is your point of impact with a sniper round. So where the crosshairs are, that's where your round is going to land. But for this, because the scope was out, maximized, it was a case of I'd be looking up in the air, firing it and sort of lobbing it in, and hoping these rounds would land on top of them. So I fired the first round, and my plan was to take out the guy at the back, take out the guy at the front, and then finally take the commander out, for reasons I do go into in the book. So I fired, and this round missed by a few inches. So quickly recocked my weapon and sent it again. Made a slight adjustment, and I've got it. I've folded this guy in half at the back. The commander and the guy at the front of this little sort of mini patrol have then turned round, and as the realisation of what's happened has come in, I've sent my next round and took out the front of this little patrol. So it just left the commander then with his protection dead in front and behind of him. So he's then legged it, but didn't get very far. I sent my next round through the air and inevitably through his torso. At that point, the radio lit up, and I've just cocked my weapon at this point and caught the empty casing in my hand, which is an alley little trick that we used to practice all the time, just to catch throughout the casing, so we'd always put them away. And an American Apache had been in the air, and he'd witnessed the whole thing. So he came over saying that, "Tell that sniper that was some darn good shooting." And I was like, "Oh, thank you very much. Cheers." Yeah. Well, I wasn't really on that at all, no. What I really did was I climbed down off the roof, and the lads around me were all kind of congratulating me. "Oh my God, flying away, blah, blah, all this kind of stuff." And I just began to close down. I got like tunnel vision, and all my hair became muffled, and it felt like my body was like really heavy, like I was just stuck in glue or something. I didn't speak to anyone. I just sort of walked around the corner and just sat with my eyes fucking dead wide open and just replaying this thing over and over and over in my head, what had just happened, and the sort of images from earlier on in the tour of the shots I'd made. And I wasn't in control of it anymore. I just sat there smoking. I must have smoked about 40 cigs. It was mad. Everyone sat, it sort of gave me the space, and it was weird. Something happened, like, I don't know, I can't explain it. The ether changed, the atmosphere changed. I'd become something at this point. I explain it like there was a fucking demon in me. I wasn't me. I was not this person that sits here today. Something else had took over. And that's when people started to notice. I was like screaming in the middle of the night, and I started writing these poems and drawing pictures of my dreams that I was having, and it was weird. It was weird, and I didn't know what
the emo phase with it.
Yeah, it was mad. It was like I'd just become this killing machine, and all I wanted to do at the time, I thought that still doing the job, continue to pull that trigger. That's what I need. I thought that's what was, I don't know, keeping me alive. I don't know. In hindsight, it wasn't. I needed help immediately. I needed help.
Is that maybe something like, in order to prove to yourself that there's not something wrong with you, I'm going to go back up there and do my job,
Yeah, I think that was a part of it, yeah. There was, I think the biggest part of it, because I kept it quiet for so long on the tour, I knew that something was up, but I hadn't heard of PTSD before. I'd never heard the term mental health. I had no idea. I just knew something weird was going, something wasn't right in my head. Well, I knew that if I speak up, it's going to mess things up. And I wasn't going. I was the protector of those lads on the ground. That was my. That's what my internal monologue was saying. I'm here to protect these lads. I'm capable of doing that. So I wasn't never ever going to say anything that might jeopardize that or make me have to leave those lads there. But the people around me noticed that I was not doing all right. And a couple of days after that incident with the 1 mile shots, I was taken off the ground. Mastiff came pick me up, took me back to the Fob Drag or Fob Dragon, as we'd called it, which was the sort of bigger forward operating base that we had. And then Chinook came and took me back to Bastion.
Was that end of all for you?
No, it was not. No, it was it almost, yeah, kind of in a way. So they sat me down in front of a psychiatric nurse, and they told me that they thought I might have an addiction to the sort of squeezing the trigger side of things, which I agreed with at the time. and I was probably just overly tired. So I was sort of prescribed a couple of weeks work in the stores. That was meant to be it. Go. So this is genuinely what happened to me now. From that office with a psychiatric nurse, I was told to work in the stores. The message got passed on. I then spent 3 days in a tent on my own, just going mad. I was then collected, took to the stores, and then sent to a different fob with one of the boys to go and do some meaningless work that meant nothing. It was just nonsense. While doing nonsense work, one of the lads got killed. Fucking loads of lads got injured. One of my best mates at the time had life-changing catastrophic injuries, and I just lost the plot. It ate me inside. It was very, very hard to swallow that pill. So, on hearing that had happened, I then managed to blag my way that I'm all right. There's like 10 days left on the tour at this point. This has all gone off just like sort of right at the end. And one of the platoon commanders was after a bunch of blokes for a volunteer operation on the last 10 days of the tour. So I was just backing hands straight up in the air. Yes, get me out there. I was gagging to get revenge. I was angry as fuck. But I now knew what would happen if I continued to tell the truth. So I was like, I'm absolutely fine. You were right. Stores was fantastic. Thank you. I've never slept so well in my life. I can do this last 10 days now. So that was it. I went out. There was a condition that I didn't take the sniper rifle, though. They would only let me out on the ground if I did not take my sniper rifle. So I was like, all right. Challenge accepted. But it turns out nothing happened on that last few days. A couple of days before we left theatre, 2 Taliban had tried digging in an IED on the main supply route for where we were on this little op. And a Predator missile vaporised them. 2 days after that, I'm back in North Wales, in the pub, stood on the fucking table, completely naked, drinking anything anyone will fucking have in their hand near me. I'm just taking drinks. My mum and dad and all my family around me, and I'm acting like a madman and trying my best to sort of emulate the person that I used to be, and just sort of, I couldn't figure out what the fuck was going on. I just couldn't get my mind. Every waking moment and most of my sleeping moments were Afghan contact, squeezing that trigger related. How am I meant to be a normal person now and come back to like camp life, doing like map reading lessons and like first aid lessons and just nonsense that I couldn't take it. And that's when drink became a big crutch for me. I never had like a mega problem with the drink. It allowed me to be an arsehole and gave me an excuse to be able to say sorry. That's what it was. Get drunk, punch someone, say sorry I was drunk. That sort of went on for quite a while. Got in trouble with the law a little bit, and became extremely depressed. It was a very, very hard time after that tour because I was so angry and I was so aggressive because that stuff had kept me alive. That stuff had made me the person I was. It allowed me to come home. So if I continue to be like that, maybe I'll be all right and I can aggressively get rid of this thing that's in my head, which I wasn't sure until 2011. I didn't know what it was. And that's when I got diagnosed.
How many successful shoots did you have on that tour?
12. Yeah.
And could you picture them all? And do you picture them all? And has that caused issues by being able to picture it?
Yeah, it did. It did very much so. Now, no, doesn't bother me anymore. It used to. It ruined my life. It made me try and kill myself. And it was just the idea of seeing the images that I'd seen. It's hard for someone to imagine what it looks like. Like you see it in films and stuff when someone gets shot. It's being a sniper and being able to see the facial expressions of someone, being able to tell sort of how experienced they were, their age. You know, you can see this person like you can see me right now, you know, through this computer screen, and then you end their life. It's very, very difficult to have those memories burst into my mind willy-nilly as they pleased. Now I can picture those things, and I do as I'm having these conversations about, you know, those images will be in my head. Sometimes they can distract me, or if I'm in the right state of mind, sometimes I still will kind of go, that was tough. That was a tough moment. But no longer does it define me, first of all, which it used to define who I was and how I behaved. And now there's the emotions aren't attached to the memories anymore because of therapy and things like that. But yeah, it was very hard to live with for a decade. Yeah, being responsible for ending someone's life and watching the end of their life was a very heavy burden to bear. And what I'm, especially as I mentioned, you know, not having spotters, there's nobody to share that. There's not a single person that sees that exact image, and you can sort of go, "Fucking hell, mate, did you see that?" You know, just that would have been game changing. And now, even recently, as I speak to, you know, the 5 snipers that were on that tour, we all say the same thing, and it's weird. So we didn't speak about any of this stuff, the sniper lads, for a long time. None of us knew really what each other had done on that tour. No one knew what anyone was struggling with or any of that. So now that we're back in touch with each other properly and speaking regularly, and we're talking about these things, and it's making genuine changes in our lives. And it's funny how we all experience the same things: the thoughts, the going on YouTube and watching helmet cam footage of Afghan, because it gives you an adrenaline dump, and you know, and you remember who you used to be or what you used to be capable of, and these things that we tell ourselves as veterans, that quite simply, for me and for most people that I've had these kind of conversations with, aren't useful. They're learned behaviours to get something that we want.
Yeah, you mentioned that burden of taking it on yourself. I have heard, I think it's in the book on killing, Kurt Grossman, I think is the guy who wrote it. And I think one of the studies in there was that like PTSD and things was, and not just PTSD, but because believe it or not, like in our army, a lot of people will try and shoot the enemy because 1, you were volunteers, 2, we're trained on targets at human shapes, etc., etc. There's a bunch of ways that we've done to do that. But back in the day when you had draftees and they used bullseye targets, the numbers of people that would actually shoot at a human being was very small. And to be honest, I think there was a few examples of guys that I served with, and I'm not knocking them for this, they were probably the sane ones, who I always kind of had to think of, was he actually trying to hit that guy?
Yeah.
And, you know, like, because, again, they're probably the same person for you know, they're probably the same person.
The thought crossed my mind quite a few times. Yeah.
But there is something that's in there that if it's a crew-served weapon, so like a crew-served machine gun, a mortar, etc., the people are more willing to try and take that life, to try and hit the target, because it is almost shared amongst people. So, yeah, I mean, like, I think, obviously, you know, like that's something that definitely kind of rings true from you know, not just your experience, but experience across nations and generations.
Yeah,
so that means something.
And there's things like you were saying then about, you know, having targets the human shaped. One thing that I've sort of learned over my years of sort of educating myself a little bit on all this kind of stuff. How do you get someone like a young lad, civilian, in how does that person go from that to this? And things like moral value as well. Calling human beings targets it reduces moral value, and then there's multiple ways that it happens. I won't go into it. I talk about it a little bit in my talking events, but having the knowledge of why that happened to me, why I made decisions I did, why I did the things, thought the things, felt the things I did, and getting the context all put together, it made one hell of a difference to how I felt. It was a massive change moment for me, that during therapy, of learning why I did what I did. There was my therapist was great. He would sort of point me in the direction of learning or watching documentaries, reading things, sort of. Well, there's one documentary called "Why Good People Do Bad Things." Have you heard of it? It goes into why people do stuff and how we can do it. Like, for instance, there's the experiments in there that we've all heard of with prisoners and prison guards, where they swap over, or they get someone who's rigged up to an electric chair, and then someone in the other room is told to press the button, and they think it's electrocuting them, and they'll keep doing it because they've got orders. Someone is telling them to do it. Don't worry about it. And it's a detachment thing. It's how we become able to do these things. Now, I would love in our military today for people to maybe be aware of these things, and rather than hoping that ignorance will just get someone to do the job, I think education would make a better job of that and allow people to, for what happened to me not to happen to other people. It happened to me because I didn't understand what was happening, and it just snowballed and escalated until my stress bucket was way too full. If I'd have known what was actually happening, maybe I'd have been able to sort of do something about that and think my way logically around the things that were happening. So I think, it's something that needs to be addressed or at least talked about.
I think we had the same therapist, didn't we, Mark?
Yeah, we did, yeah.
Yeah. Shout out, Mark. Legend. Mate, so in terms of the therapy as well, is it, was the book something that came from that, or was it something before that you were trying to do on your own as a form of therapy?
It's always been a kind of an idea, a little bit of an idea in the back of my mind. Loads of people just kept saying, "Oh, you should write a book." So that was one influence. The main influence, though, really was there's one day I picked up the newspaper, and I think it was that week 6 British soldiers had killed themselves from PTSD. And I just thought, fucking hell, man, I need to do something about this. And as sort of, ridiculous as that sounds, one person can't really do a lot. But what I could do was tell my story and spread the hope that, in fact, PTSD can be cured. Because no one ever told me it could be cured. They only ever told me that it couldn't. And I'd only just be able to learn to live with my symptoms. And that was as good as it got. And that sounded shit to me. That just sounded shit. And I couldn't accept that. And now I want to just want to spread this word that it can be gotten rid of. And almost like there is a goal that can be achieved. So hopelessness should be eradicated because there's a goal that people can achieve with PTSD. And you can't become the person you were. That's never going to happen, but you can become a new and improved version of you that is happy and positive, because I definitely can. I never used to be able to get out of bed, or, I couldn't string a sentence together because I'd be crying all the time, constantly crying. And this sniper that had done all this stuff, and this is what I'd say to myself, and I'd beat the hell out of myself, just thinking like, who are you? Well, what a waster. How weak are you? And I'd just be having these conversations all day, every day, and it's just simply not true. And the way that I broke that was hopefulness that, I can defeat this.
Well, hopefulnessly, people will buy the book, mate, and learn more about it. But they can also connect with you on social media and everything like that. Please do. You're very active on there. Like I said, mate, I think you're doing everything the right way, getting out there, spreading the word, and I'm sure helping a lot of people along the way. I've got to finish off with this question, mate. But first, before we do that, I just want to thank you for your time today. Thank you for the positive message that you're putting out, mate. Raising the vibe, as they say.
It's all about positivity. Certainly is. Thank you for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. This has been a long time coming, hasn't it?
It has, mate. It's funny, actually. I want to shout out Wayne Ingram as well for reminding me, because the other day he was like, "Yeah, we've got this mate. We should have him on the podcast." And I was like, "Oh fuck, I forgot about that." Because we had Scoff. It's a few months. I know it must be a few months since we had Scoff, mate. Because I remember we were sitting outside. We're sitting outside with a pint. So that's if we'd have done that recently, mate, we'd both been going man down in the weather up here. But yes, so thanks again, mate. And I'll let everyone know where they can get a hold of you, find you. Well, not physically, but online. And just one question, mate. And you can go as you don't feel like you have to make this a short answer. If you want to roll with this, then roll with it. Given everything that's happened in your life, all the experiences you've been through in the military, good or bad, specifically your time in the army and on operations, would you do it all again?
Yeah, I would. I would do it all again. I am definitely I'm the person now that I wanted to always be: happy, confident, content, fulfilled. And I've only been able to achieve what I've achieved, I think, be that, traveling around the world and putting myself in all these different situations, or actually sort of managing to take on the mammoth task that is PTSD. I'm only being able to do that because of who I became in the forces. I think I wouldn't change it. Whether I would suggest it as a career option for people, I don't know. That's the honest answer. I can honestly say I've never said that someone should do it, but I would do it again.
All right, guys, there we have it. Thanks for joining us today. Ted, thanks for giving up your time, mate. Everyone, if you want to get connected with each other, Ted's social media links are in the show notes, as are the links to his books. And I hope I will be seeing some of you. I know I'll be seeing some of you because you've already told me, but I hope I'll be seeing even more of you on February the 8th, Aces High Gallery, down in Oxfordshire there. All the details down in the show notes. We'll be back in just over a week, guys. Until then, be good to yourselves, be kind to each other, and we'll catch you again very soon.